K- oh, wow. Kapow! Hello.
Were you ready? It's
I
like you were like blown away by the machine. Like, oh my
I
God, it
know.
works.
And I'm the one who started the recording, and yet
You're
yeah.
Oz. You're Oz, and you were like, oh my God, you're Oz. You gotta own it, you know?
I've seen Wicked, and it doesn't bode well for me. He's not the great guy that he makes himself out to be. I'll
Are
tell you
you a
that.
musical guy? Do you like musicals?
Oh, big time.
Oh my God, I'm not. I was the theater guy, theater school kid who was like, I don't like musicals. Like, and it's fine. It's not like I want to eradicate the world of musicals. It's just not my thing. But people would be very perplexed.
Hmm.
They'd be like, how can you not like Sondheim? And I'm like, it's not my thing. It's not my jam. I like Dr. Evil.
Well, it's funny. I thought you were gonna say like I'm a straight play guy. I'm a mammoth. I'm a Arthur Miller. You're like Mike Myers, Austin Powers, instead of that
You know
that
what's funny?
schlock that is Stephen Sondheim.
Yeah, and you bring up a great point because yeah, like when I was a roly poly long haired kid in the '90s, going yeah, I want to like do theater. It's like you're not going to be in a Sam Shepard play in New York City, not even in Milwaukee. Your best bet is to figure out this Doctor Evil thing. That's you know
Were you
I
hoping
should
to
have
maybe be a Bond villain, be cast as someone just super evil?
it's oddly enough, I just reconnected with an old college friend, and the last time I saw him, he was the guy in theater school who was like, he was an athlete, good looking African American dude, and I would be, a long haired roly poly weirdo, and I remember him saying, "Oh, you're gonna be fine. You're like Jim Carrey. You're gonna find roles. Look at me. I'm anonymous." Here we are, 30 years later. Neither of us really doing anything.
Yeah, and
Actually,
then
that's
and
not
it's
true.
crazy
That's
that
not true.
guy turned out to be Sterling K. Brown. How crazy!
No, no, this guy is not. But he probably makes more money. Like he works in finance. Like he literally was like, "Oh yeah, here's my website." And I looked at his company, and literally the website says, "If you're an entrepreneur, click here, and if you're an investor, click here." So he just like works in money, and he started out right after college. He got a job working with the studios, helping them find talent right out of USC. So he just quickly was like, "I'm gonna get into the business world," and then he moved to Austin in '06, '07. So kind of an early wave, and he is on a whole other. You can tell when you meet people, and you're like, yeah, you figured you learned that there's ways to make money. You're like you're the around the money. You can talk to people with money. You're around the money. You have money, and then there's us, just as dads.
Does he have children?
I don't know. I literally saw him at this little like get together. He strikes me as like married with kids for sure. Like, but I
He
literally
doesn't lead with it. He's not doing a podcast about it. He's got more important stuff going on.
he doesn't lead with it. He leads with like he was like, "Oh yeah, what's up, man? So what do you want to do?" And I was like, "Uh, are you Oz?" I mean, like who said, when you connect with people and you're like, "Yeah, what are you up to? Yeah, it's crazy out there." And some people are like, "So what do you want to do?" Neil, what do you want to do? That's what he said. And then I went to his website and I was like, "Whoa."
And which are you? Are you an investor or an entrepreneur?
I'm clearly neither.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what I want to do. I want to tell you, I had an eventful week last week. I turned 40.
Oh, that's
Uh,
right.
I
Happy birthday.
chaperoned my daughter's first grade class trip to the museum, in which we were kicked out And my son had a trip to urgent care because he decided to stick his finger in a pencil sharpener.
Oh crap. Oh God. Like, uh, I'll be honest. When you said that, I was like, but it can't fit. But in the case of your son, it did, didn't it?
Let's go one by one. I turned 40 years old, Ollie. Uh, I'll accept your belated birthday
I
wish. Thank you so
said
much.
it earlier. Fine.
I know, but not on air. Our
Just
listener
now I
didn't
did.
hear.
No, just now I did.
Oh.
We're bickering. We've been doing this so long, we're like an old couple.
You know, you
So
sound like my wife, where she'll be
weird.
like, I'll be like, you didn't say that. She'll be like, I just said it. And then you go into the recesses of your brain and you're like, did she say it?
Oh my
And
god.
there was an episode of Black Mirror, I believe it's called Redo.
Hmm.
Did you see this one where people
No.
could have they have basically like a DVR in their brain if they put a chip in and they could like replay fights and stuff. It was like a hard drive and it was like I didn't say that. And it's like play the redo and it was like just crazy. Anyway, they caught like an
Okay.
affair. Obviously, it was kind of, it was like the futuristic version of like getting salty text messages to your phone from someone you shouldn't be talking to. Anyways, I'm 40. Congratulations, everybody, on knowing me that I exist for 4 decades, 4 decades strong,
40.
established in 1985. Here we are. Anyway, people have been asking me, how does it feel? How you doing? I feel the same. I understand that
Hmm.
this is a marker of time, uh, quite literally. But and this is going to sound a little. You're in a similar boat, Ali, despite the graying, whiting tuft above your hair. Other than that, you're a young looking. You got a young face. We have young faces, and so I think there is a
Yeah.
cognitive dissonance going on with the feeling of aging when you
Hmm.
don't look like what society deems as a typical 40 something.
Yeah.
In your case, 47 something, 47,
8.
48,
48. Yeah, I'm
so,
knocking at 50. I literally was at an event the other day, and I was, I'm very quite content to just, especially when I go to events, I feel like I'm now in the category of I'm like the oldest person here, at least in the food content creator space, whatever you want to call that.
old
And so I
people
was like,
don't eat. Only young people are eating and cooking these days.
they're definitely not trying to master TikTok. You know what I mean? Old people are just like, oh yeah, I watch it. I'm not going to make it. But here I am at this thing. I'm talking to these people, and they're not spring chickens either. But I'm like, listen, I'm really old. Like I'm old, and I was like, I'm 48. And this one person was like, she was like, what? You are? Now, part of it is this. Part of it is, of course, part of me is like, I look, quote, good for the age. The other part of it is she probably does not talk to people at that age. Like I've been in there too. I remember being at a event in Barbados with a guy who was like 29, and he was like, wait, you're how old? Like, he's like, he literally goes, I've never hung out with someone that old before. That wasn't like, parents, friend kind of thing. And I was like, yeah, dude, this happens. And yeah, I have to say, like, I have the gray tuft, sure, but it is nice to know that I look better now than I did when I was 40. It's kind of weird. Like, that's kind of a weird thing for me. I'm getting older and I'm in better shape. So really, age is not really, age gracefully. How about that? You're aging gracefully, Neil. You don't look old. You
That's
could
the
be in
problem.
your,
I
you could
can't
be
feel 40 if
30.
I don't look 40. My body's like starting to go, hey dude, you're 40. It's so about a month ago, we
Hmm.
were at my best friend from growing up's house for a Seder for Passover,
Mm.
and his entire family was there, and his grandma, this old woman who's, I don't mean to be rude, I mean, 95 is old, is that fair? This older woman who fled the
Nothing rude about it.
Nazis,
Oh,
German,
really? That's
uh,
old. Okay, 95 is old, and fleeing the Nazis is
yeah.
old. You're
So,
not. That's completely
but I got to
fair to
tell
call
you,
that old.
she is sharp. We're
Mm.
chatting, and she says to me, "Are you? How old are you? Are you turning 40 like Craig?" I said, "Yeah." Yep, we're the same year. I'll be 40. And she looks at me and she says, 40 was very hard for me. Very hard. I said, okay, thanks. Like, uh, and it kind of, I'm still thinking about it, but I will say, I have to imagine 40, uh, 55 years ago, it's like a different thing, right? Now
Yes.
we're like, my wife got me a Nintendo Switch for my birthday. I'm going to 90s night on Friday. Like we're fun. 40's
Yeah.
fun,
Yeah.
Back then it was just like I didn't die in the camps, and
Yeah.
now here I am, three
Yeah.
children.
I could, there's twofold. One is there's no way you're going to be able to even keep up with the woman who escaped the Nazis successfully. She's basically like Tomb Raider, in my opinion. She was young and she freaking, they had guns. She had her legs. She had her wits. She did it, right? There's that. Um, for you to sit there and tell me that you're talking to a woman who escaped the Nazis and she's telling you 40's hard is almost your Larry David moment. This could have been straight out of Curb, where, you're just like, meh, 40, meh. It's a very, very, very Curb moment you had. Yeah, you really can't compete. Let's be honest. You cannot relate to this woman. Sure, you're Jewish, but you said Nintendo Switch. She said hard. I could only, some wild stuff.
It's
My
funny you
parents.
say, I can't. I was trying to relate. In my mind, I'm a very existential, dark, 40, young looking 40 something. I'm 40 something. I'm 40. I'm a 40 something. I'm a 40 nothing.
You're 4D.
40.
There's
I'm
no
not a 40
something. You're
something.
4D.
Next year I'll be 40 something.
Yeah.
And she's, by the way, her room, this living room is filled with just joy and like 15 grandchildren, a couple of her kids, their spouses, everyone's laughing. There's a spread, singing, and I see her. Like for some reason she locked into me. I think because I'm like the outsider. I'm not one of the family. She can kind of like vent to me, and she's looking around and she's just like, goes by so fast. You have no idea. You have no idea. And now, again, I'm consider myself a deep thinker. And I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, no, I know. And she goes, no, you don't. No, you have no idea. And I was like, okay. I, yeah,
I can't. These are definitely one of those moments where I could have absolutely. The thing is if she locked in on you, I don't know what she'd do to me. So I don't know if I'd want to be in the party. You know what I'm saying? Although I'm curious about the spread. Not gonna lie, I bet that would be,
well,
of the
Passover. So, no yeast. Might not
lamb.
like it.
I'm actually trying to lean off the starches generally, so it might work out for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is. I mean, you know what? I'll be honest. We'll just tell the truth here about the podcast. Sometimes we do have to take some creative liberties. I don't care if this is made up or not. This is a fantastic Neil story. It's just I can't imagine anything quite as wild as you talking to a 95-year-old woman who escaped the Nazis and you've turned 40 and she is trying to just tell you about like life and stuff and you just got to switch. I just
To be
can't.
fair, the Switch came a month later. Also, I can't believe you think I would make this up. I would invent someone else's grandmother just for a story.
I mean, it's a good one. You know what? Consider that a compliment because you are a true producer and a creative at that. And
Appreciate it.
honestly, like I'm finding this like beyond. Like I said, I wish I was a fly on the wall. If I was in there, then she'd ask me questions, and I would really be
You'd be
the
like,
sore
"What are you?
thumb.
How did you get in? What
Yeah,
are
I
you
know.
doing here?"
Oh no, like, are you here to fix that thing? And I'm like, yep. Let me get the ladder. I left it in the car. I left my ladder in the car.
All right. So yeah, I'm 40. Real quick, I'll tell you what we did for my birthday. Thanks for asking. We
You're on fire today. You are on fire today. This is rare. Yeah.
Yeah. I got to get this all out of my system, and then we'll pay more attention to you, listeners. I We woke up. This is a weird thing that when my daughter was a baby, she was 3 months, yeah, like 3 months old, and I said to my wife on my birthday that year, I said, I want us all to dress alike. I don't know why. And so
What?
every year,
Wait, what? This is what you said?
I,
Really?
I had, I was a new dad. I was kind of like in it. I was like, I just want you guys to like, so my wife bought us all like polos, like
She
striped
agreed?
polos. Oh,
She
yeah.
agreed to it?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. And well, not only that, Ollie, it's become a tradition now where we all wear the same thing on my birthday now for 8 years going. My daughter's 7, but she was an infant that first birthday. So what did my wife do because it was my 40th? She couldn't just get us all similar outfits. She had shirts made with my face on them, but not just my face, like 5 different faces, like different versions of me. I'll show you the picture. And it was very sweet. And I will tell you, I had several people hitting us up on the DMs, on the text, saying, I want a shirt. And I'm like, it's kind of a limited release. I don't even know where she got these printed. But also, it's a cool shirt. It's like a concert shirt. It's like a tour. It's almost like
Can I get a shirt?
old
I
school
mean, you're not going to
Metallica.
keep wearing yours.
I'll wash it. I'll send it to you.
All right. Fair. It's funny. After a while, I'm like, I shouldn't be laughing at you about this. It's like a nice thing in a way, but just the way it came out, like, hey, I want us to all dress alike. I mean, this is literally like something out of a sitcom, like, you just 3 cam sitcom, cue audience laugh track. Like, I've got an idea. I want us all to dress alike.
Here's the
My
thing. I don't even remember why I said that or desired it. But now it has become a tradition and I quite enjoy it, which is probably why I started it in the first place. But yeah, I think back to like 8 years ago. I'm like, that's kind of weird. But we do it every year on May 9th.
What does your
and it's
wife
very
have
nice.
to wear? What are some of these outfits? We're gonna have to dig into the digital
Yeah,
photo album.
I'll get into the archives.
Whoa.
So they dressed like me. We had a nice bagel breakfast. Dropped the kids off at school. My wife gave me a few hours to myself. She was working, left me alone, and then we went to the Whitney because we're super cultured. And
Yeah.
then I had a margarita at lunch. A little Dos Caminos action, if you remember that place in the old NYC. It's a chain. We had to
Never
get
went.
back. And
Yeah.
then we hung out with some pals. It was a rainy day. And then we
Mm.
went for like a really super fancy dinner at this place that my wife was like she was like, there's a reservation here. How you're like waiting on Resi? There's one at 10 o'clock. And I was like, we're not going somewhere at 10. So we
Yeah,
went to
it's
this
late.
place, Nura. It was very hipster service. Despite them putting a little plaque in front of me that, to signify it was my birthday, they didn't show up back at the table for 20 minutes. But here's the thing. I don't go to dinner a lot, especially not a fancy dinner. And you realize, as a now 40-year-old man,
Yeah.
sitting there with your wife at a really nice place, like we're paying for the babysitter, like this is our night
Yeah.
out. You're looking
Yeah.
around and you're like, everyone here is very young,
Mm.
very good looking, and it
Mm.
looks like they do this all the time.
Oh.
This is not a big deal for them at all.
Yeah.
We're at Nura. Ooh, here we are.
Now, Nura, like, what's this place? Is there like a famous name to it? Is it a new place? What's the draw? What's the hook here? Are we in the city or are we in Brooklyn?
No. We're on Norman, 46 Norman Ave, Nora. I'll just read you some of the menu items. See if, you want to go when you're in town. We've got a fluke crudo to start. Maybe a pea shoot salad. Some of the small plates, I can get you some roasted carrots for $17. Not digging it? How about some marinated mushrooms for 18? Ooh, you know what? I'd like to serve you, Alia, Japanese sweet potato with yogurt, salsa matcha verde. What do you think that's going to run you?
You said a Japanese sweet potato.
That's right.
Let's go 22.
19. So, what a deal, huh?
Yeah,
Large
fair.
plates. We've got a whole black bass, 45. Lamb ribs, 34. Half chicken, $40. Roasted garlic, ancho, chili, citrus. What could go wrong? Of course,
No
don't forget the
sides.
dips.
Doesn't come with sides.
Sides are extra. Breads, naan, $5. Little bread like this. A
Wow.
roti with fenugreek and ghee, $5. Cornbread, $7. I'm not getting a cornbread at this fancy restaurant. I want cornbread. I'll get the box at Trader Joe's. Anyways, we had a lovely time, and we came back and talked to our 23-year-old babysitter for a while, and her boyfriend. It was very cute. Our neighbor upstairs often babysits. She's like applying to med schools, and she was like, "Can my boyfriend come down?" And I was like, "What is this? What is this, like a movie? Like,
Yeah.
where like the teenage, babysitter
Can
brings
my
over her."
boyfriend
I will tell
come
you, we
down?
came home to them, sitting at our living room table, doing work. They're just like nerding out. He's a PhD in computer science.
Oh.
I mean, these are like, smart
Yeah.
smart people. They
Yeah.
might know your guy in Austin, your finance guy.
Maybe. How much is a sitter? How much is a babysitter?
Ugh,
How much does that cost you?
great question. We I like to pay a flat fee. It's funny. It's one of those things I like don't even like discuss it. It's like you're playing chicken with the babysitter. I pay a flat fee of about $100 a night.
That's
That buys you
yeah.
3 to 4, sometimes 5 hours. Now, if they're elsewhere, you got to pay for the Uber home. Occasionally, you're buying a pizza for the kids
Mm-hmm.
and plus babysitter.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it ain't cheap. I'll say we were in and out. I mean, this is how lame we are. And it was local dinner, in and out in 2 hours. So I just gave her $75. Now,
Mm.
that's a little high, but my wife said, "Hey, this is a long-term relationship.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to cheap out
Right.
just because it was a short night."
Mm-hmm.
I thought 100 was a little bit much for 2 hours sitting there with your boyfriend. The kids are already asleep, just to like.
20 an hour seems to be, I mean, we've been out of the game for a long time, but it did occur to me that we were getting into the 20 an hour. I was like, oh my God. But yeah, my worst babysitter story was, we had someone come, and my wife is out of town. I booked a last minute job, and so I had to be gone, and our kids, like, it's kind of funny to say this, but like, 3, 4, 5, you're like, oh my God, no, I need someone there, whatever. And she charged, I should find she sent an itemized receipt. She charged for every hour she was here. It was an overnight. But she charged a rate while she slept. Like, all that counted. She like had receipt reimbursement. Yeah, it was hundreds of dollars. So what happened was, I was shooting a show, and I got, like, my per diem was cash. I literally got like $1,000, $1,100 just cash in my hand. This is pre end of times, 2017. And I come back, and I'm just got this wad of cash, and then literally I'm like, well, 400 of it is going right to her. I was like, goodbye, money. Yeah, it was. I mean, yeah, that was
That
was
is wild. However, I'm gonna guess there was no discussion or negotiation ahead of time about rate.
no. It was like we just had to make this happen. This was 2017, when I was basically gone all year, And yeah, it's so funny. I noticed this too, like shooting stuff, right? It's like you can make some money, but then it costs you money when if your work involves travel, there's costs associated with that. You have kids, yeah, dog. I mean, I have a friend of mine who stopped doing Netflix shows. She goes, I'm spending so much money boarding my dog. Like, I need to work more locally. Like, it's not, like, I have a life, so cost of doing business, Neil. Cost of doing business. Austin's
I gotta
not
see
cheap.
that itemized receipt. I mean, that is wild.
I will, man. I mean, I know I had it. I'm sure at some point, though, I was like, yeah, that was just. And the funny thing is, it was our neighbor across the street. It was their they're long gone. They moved away, but it was like their au pair, which also is a problem. You know what I mean? But dude, I'm not in Manhattan or Brooklyn.
No, no.
Okay.
Well, hold on. Let's talk au pairs for a sec. Because here's the thing. You know, oftentimes
Yeah.
I am in Brooklyn, and we've had this weird experience. We'll meet these people. They've got a second home. They've got a couple Rivians. What's going on? Are
Yeah,
they
what's going on?
heirs to some sort of, bubble wrapped fortune? You never really quite know.
Totally
They own a couple
bubble wrap.
restaurants. These types of folks. Or occasionally the one of the partners will work in finance but dress. This is a big Brooklyn thing. They'll dress like they run like an indie record label, and you're like, and then you find out they work at like Goldman Sachs. Anyway, we meet these people. They've got like 3 kids. This is an archetype. There's a lot of these people here, and then you're like, oh, you have a nanny? They're like, we have an au pair. You're like, you have an au pair? You're essentially like you're making this weird deal because like the labor laws don't apply or something. My wife has a line. She's always just like, it's always a little weird with the au pair. You're like, is the husband sleeping with the au pair? Like, it's always a little odd. They have a room there. They're 24. It's just it's strange. The au pair thing, I don't get it.
Coming from Los Angeles, where there is a different culture of, frankly, labor. Okay. And when we came to Austin, that was one of the things we noticed. Like, wow, like it's not, you don't have this large labor force that, to be blunt, represents a lot of immigrants from Latin America. Okay. And that changes cost dynamics of lots of things. Like, we had a wonderful, wonderful person who started out being someone who would, clean our place, our apartment, and then she would watch our kid and stuff. And, like, she's so sad she ended up passing away, but she was almost like a family member. She's just you meet these people and heart of gold. Like, everyone loved Yolanda, right? And it's funny. Like, I don't know if it was just kind of an understanding we had, but whatever she charged was like nothing. Okay, compared to coming here and just experience. All of a sudden, to be blunt too, it's like you start to meet college kids, are taking this kind of work over, and in terms of like who we could find to watch our child. And yeah, it changes a lot. It's Austin is one of those places that not only was surprisingly more expensive than we thought when we moved here a decade ago, but in the post end of times, with the new tech boom and the people who are like the remote workers. So, you've got your Goldman Sachs who's wearing expensive rag and bone, but it's rag. You know what I mean? Expensive rag, but it's rag and bone. Here, it's just like, yeah, you just you have like a lot of people that are just like, oh, bro, so much cheaper in San Francisco. And they're just paying out. They're just paying out. And here I am. Here I am going, used to be on TV guy. Used to be on TV guys trying to, keep his head above water. That's me.
You're doing great.
I am thankful for many things. So there you have it. There you have it.
All right. Okay. We got through my birthday. What else happened? I chaperoned the trip to the Brooklyn Museum. My daughter was so excited.
Yeah, what happened here?
I got chosen.
Okay.
Here's what happened. Is they split us up. There were 3 parents and the teacher. By the way, this teacher, my daughter's like in love with him, as are many of the moms. He's very kind, very soft, like so patient.
Soft.
Yeah, like he talks softly.
Physically so.
Like a cool dude. He,
Mm-hmm.
he's there. My daughter's in dual language, so he teaches French. Anyways, I will say the double-edged sword of that is maybe the kids are a little rambunctious in the Brooklyn Museum, with priceless pieces of art that are like hundreds of years old. Our tour guide was not having it. So
Uh,
maybe I had a few of the kids who were a little bit more, let's say, I'm going to use a euphemism here, lively. They've got some personality. Perhaps they're not the best listeners. Um, you know, other parents might have other choice words for these kids. Anyways, I ended up teaming up with one of the other chaperones because these boys didn't want to be in my group. It was me, three girls, two boys. And I was like, yeah, 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 we'll all be together. Now, maybe a couple of these boys were jumping on furniture. Maybe one of them threw water at a painting, maybe. Uh, and maybe they called the tour guide a really unkind name that had to do with the shape of her body. Uh, Maybe
wow.
these things happened. Um, did we get to see only one painting for a 5 hour field trip? Yeah, yeah, we did. Um, Now, when I relayed this story, because news gets around, the rumor mill starts spreading. Um, and, parents want to know, well, who were the kids? Who got you kicked out for real? We share the names, like, and they're like, I'm not surprised. Well, whose group were they in? And my wife never misses an opportunity. She goes, they were in Neil's group.
Hey.
Now I'm like, hey, I don't know these kids. I just met them this day. I've heard about them, heard about these kids. But, there's, you got an audience of the teacher, the other parents. I don't feel necessarily the agency to like scold them, yell at them in quite the forceful way I could my own kids, or even kids that like, we're family friends with. Like, hey, 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 come on. So, I did the best I could. Ultimately, we did get kicked out of the Brooklyn Museum, and it was the talk of the school. And to the point where, I mean, my daughter was crying, other kids were crying,
Wait,
like, this is our
whoa.
only field trip. Well, because
Yeah.
unfortunately, we never got to see the second painting that we were supposed to see, and perhaps some of the other work,
They
because
threw
we were
water
cut
at the
short.
painting? That's bad. That's
It's not
really bad.
great.
Where did the
That kid
water
wasn't in my
come
group.
from?
That
Where did
kid
the
wasn't
water
in my
come
group.
from?
The other two, his little buddies, they were in my group. Anyways, so that happened. But a couple things I learned were, you talk about the difference between boys and girls, and something I noticed is that these boys that got us kicked out, they kind of ruined the trip for everybody. And I was like, wow, it starts so early. These girls trying to do like the emotional labor of like, I saw it the other day. My daughter's like, hey, stop running down the halls. She's saying to some, boys. And I'm like, oh my God, they're like mothering these kids. It's got to stop. We have to allow our girls to feel so empowered that they too can throw water on priceless works of art. It's not right that only the boys get to do this.
You have had a loaded few days. I mean, I can't honestly, like, I'm mortified. Like, the idea. I remember going to the St. Louis Art Museum, and, like, that never happened. That never, nothing like that. Throwing water, that's pretty crazy. That's some, yeah, I don't know.
Not
That's
great.
balls.
It's
That
not
is,
great,
that
Oliver.
is
Not great.
balls. I'm going to defend you, Neil. I know this happened under your watch, on your watch, but you didn't raise that kid. Sounds like a bunch of savages did. That's on them. And that is on them. Yes, it is.
All
Yes, it
right, let's
is.
get to the last portion of my week, which is that my
Oh,
son decided to stick his finger in a pencil sharpener. I'll
yeah.
paint the picture for you. My kids go to an after school art program on Tuesdays, and I'm walking in to pick them up, and I hear someone screaming, crying. And I walk in, and it's my son. And he's in the arms of the instructor, who's a lovely woman. Um, and let me tell you, my son has like the highest tolerance for pain. Like it's scary.
Mm.
He has like no fear,
We've talked
no,
about this. Yes.
yeah. And
Yes.
so the fact that he was like crying, I was like, well, what's going on? What happened? And she's like, he was experimenting and he put his finger in the pencil sharpener. I'm like, oh my God, like a I'm thinking like a no,
Yeah.
the manual pencil sharpener, which I
Oh,
think is actually worse in some ways because
yeah.
it's harder to squeeze your finger in there. I don't know. So, which means he had to twist. So he pulled a little chunk off. What I learned
Oh,
is the finger, a lot of veins in your fingers. The blood is gushing and gushing and gushing. You've got a band-aid situation going on where, I think at this point I'm like, all right, it's a little bit more emotionally traumatic. By the way, my son, I'll be like, hey, can I have a hug? Like, hey, buddy, like I'll be like, "Mwah," and he'll be like, see ya. Like, not an affectionate kid. Everybody's
right.
different. He's like, cuddling me like a sloth. So I know like he's really going through it.
Like a
Um,
sloth. That's
yeah.
interesting.
And
That's what comes to your mind. Your son, when he hugs you, he's like a sloth.
yeah, isn't that what's like, aren't they like kind of like glued to you?
I just don't, you know what I mean? I'm like, oh, he's just cuddling at me like the little like, I just, I don't know. A sloth is, like it's a lazy animal. To
Oh,
all the animals, it's a mammal. I'll give you that. But you're like, oh, he's cuddling at me like a sloth. Maybe
yeah.
you like sloths. All right, go on. He's missing
Anyways,
some finger. He's
cut
bleeding.
to of course, I call my wife. She doesn't answer. She texts me back, "Hey, I'm in a meeting." I'm like, "All good." Zeke hurt his finger, uh, put his finger in a pencil sharpener, and this is why. I mean, my wife, just God bless her, so brilliant. She goes, text back, "Does he need stitches?" And I'm like, I didn't even think of that. She's thinking of everything. I'm thinking, got a band-aid on. I'm with him, and I was like, I'll look again when we get home. We're on our way home. I'll look again. So now we're in the whole like. So I look again. Uh-oh, blood everywhere, splattering. Ah, and I'm like, all right, I gotta get a new band-aid on. So we gotta get get a new band-aid on.
Yeah.
The bleeding stops. Um, my wife finally comes home from work, and a couple hours have gone by. Still gushing blood. We're like, I don't know if this is normal, but we should call the doctor. We go to one of those doctors that like they got like the hotline, ton of different offices, which is nice. Talk to a nurse. Now here's the thing. You explain the situation. You're not there with them. You're like, I don't know if we should go to the, urgent care or not. Like, what are they gonna say? It's like a liability. They're like, yeah, I think you should go, just to be safe. So my wife hops in an Uber. It's like 7:30. We're like, do you even take kids? They're like, yeah, we'll take kids. And as long as you get here before 8, we'll see you. So she like races there. My son, by the way, already in his pajamas. He goes to his, urgent care in his pajamas. And I get like the most adorable photo from urgent care. He's in good spirits. Uh, the final diagnosis is no stitches. They did a little wound care. They put like a what they called a marshmallow butterfly thing. I don't know medicine. They said, hey, it's going to turn brown and should fall off on its own. That's supposed to happen. That's good. And then the next day we picked him up from school and he said, it fell off. It turned brown. That's good. I said, okay.
Like,
And
what did? The finger or the bandage?
yeah, his finger fell off. No, like the little like, suture, the wound care thing fell off like it's supposed to.
New stuff for me over here.
Hey
Never,
man,
yeah,
technology, it's crazy.
yeah,
And
yeah.
he's healing, it's breathing, the skin will grow back. We are resilient. Uh
Any
and I'll just leave
scarring?
you
Any, like he's not like this
possibly.
guy.
No, 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 the no, no. We've got, the tip is there.
Yeah.
I'll leave you with this, when I asked him, "Hey buddy," when he was a little bit calmer, I said, why'd you put your finger in the pencil sharpener?" He said, "I thought my fingers were pencils and I wanted to see if I could sharpen them." So, I don't know. Might be his superhero origin story, Pencil Man.
Well, one thing we know is he's definitely not unbreakable. I mean, you don't have to worry about him going, I wonder if I can lift these weights.
I
No,
feel nothing. No, he felt it. He felt it. He was very sad, but he's okay.
that's
And
good.
that was my week. And how was your week? How you
I
doing?
nothing compared to this. My God, it's just really it's kind of funny. I'm starting to feel the oldness of life set in. I have certain kind of things down. Like I know how to like have a relaxing weekend. I know kind of my limits. I know how to kind of balance out life. I'm not. I try not to wake up on a Monday going, "Oh, I had too much fun on the weekend." It's just literally wake up on a Monday. Lately, my Mondays have been like, "What a great weekend." We'll say that. Like we had a great weekend. We've been enjoying the outdoors because, as you might know, Austin, Texas becomes unconscionably hot until the end of the year. And right now we are in the best weather ever. A friend of mine just moved here from LA for 2 months and she lived at the beach and she goes, "This is great." And I'm like, "Kiss this goodbye. This is not going to happen." But we've been out and about enjoying weather. We had a lovely Mother's Day. My kid plays volleyball. He showed me how to play volleyball. Volleyball is not easy. It's hard. Um, we were two older people trying to keep up with a child that's pretty athletic, incredibly limber. He like grabbed his like ankle and was able to stretch his leg in a way that I was like, "Oh my God, this looks like some sort of like circus act." Um, he was showing us volleyball. We tried to figure it out. It hurts. The next day, my hands were sore. There's a whole process of it's like there's a thing, and you do this, and um. So yeah, we just very kind of nice, tranquil, family, weekendy, Mother's Day. We did stuff. I had a birthday. I, just turned the big 4-8 the weekend before. But, I just been enjoying my backyard. And the other day, in a real moment of us really kind of being like, my God, we're turning into old people, my wife's like, "Do you want to just sit out on the chairs at the front of the house and we'll just sit and like have a drink and look at stuff?" And I'm like, yeah, we're just like old people just sitting out there looking at things. We're doing these, I'm mentioning these kind of what seem like whatever activities because in 2 weeks, in 3 weeks, I'll be like, "It's so hot, we don't know what to do." You're just begging for relief or whatever. But yeah, and then literally coming on the heels today of speaking at my son's school, they had a little AAPI event, so I went there to in honor of AAPI month. Just talk about a few restaurants and give a little brief food talk about Asian food and two fantastic restaurants in Austin that represent a more unseen, underrepresented Asian food, Laotian food, specialized regional Thai.
Let's hear him.
Um,
Shout him out.
oh yeah, well, a big shout out to Loud Bar. They were a semi-finalist for Best New Restaurant, the James Beard Foundation this year. They do Laotian food, and the other restaurant is called Pitai Kamangao, which is a Thai version of Hainese chicken. These are two restaurants that both opened last year to a good amount of acclaim in Austin. They're not as expensive as your place that you went to on your birthday, Nora. In fact, for the cost of a carrot, you could actually get the famous main dish. Actually, yeah, and they're just these two wonderful casual, and we're sorely in need of more diversity in Austin. It's a city that has a big name but not a deep bench in terms of representing various communities and cultures. These guys do it really well with their food, but it was probably one of the few last times I'd be addressing. Hey, I've done some stuff at my son's school over the years, and that's where my wife worked at. And it just kind of dawned on me as I was walking into this chapel 10 years of being associated with this school. It's why we moved to Austin. Knowing that that chapter is starting to come to a close, he is in 8th grade, and then he is done with that entire campus. He might continue on with that school, but literally kindergarten through 8th grade at one place, which is pretty wild. It's very profound. I was thinking about that today, and knowing that I'll probably have certainly no more than a year left going to this place that I've been basically going to for a decade when my wife worked there and then my son started attending in 2017. So that's weird. I mean, not weird. It's just kind of like, wow. Recognizing an era, Neil. My son's growing up. My son's growing up. He's going to be in high school, literally in another year away from high school, which is kind of wild. I'm wistful.
Yeah.
I'm wistful right now. Being wistful.
Feel like we should play some Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah, definitely. You know, Cat in the Cradle. You know,
I don't know if we can clear any of it, so maybe I should just sing it.
Those are the old days, Neil. You're thinking about TV. My wife the other day is like, you can play this stuff on YouTube. I'm like, they don't care. I watched the entire John Gotti movie with Armand Assante on YouTube. And I've watched it for years. Years. They don't take it down. We don't take things down anymore. Not on YouTube. Not on social. Think about that.
Children get older, and I'm getting older too.
Yeah.
Just in case, I'll just
Look at this tuft. Oh, my tuft.
Ollie, I'm gonna play a couple. Speaking of the old social media, came across this clip of you know this guy, this gossip guy, this Penn Badgley. You know this guy?
No.
He's on You. You know You?
No, I don't
There's a show
know
called
you.
You. I think he's like a serial killer. Anyway, yeah, he went on this indie podcast called Call Her Daddy, and he was talking about being a dad. I'm gonna roll this clip for you. Hang on.
All right, great. Fantastic.
I'm curious if there were any like behaviors that you witnessed as a kid in your house that you never want your kids to experience.
Calling it coldness, feels a bit unforgiving to my parents. It's not, because that sounds like there's intent behind it. There wasn't a lot of life at home. As a parent, you're constantly being brought in touch with, oh, I didn't have that. The first time that I felt that I needed to say I'm sorry to my now 4.5-year-old, I think he was 3, maybe freshly 3. It was a minor moment. He would not get in the car seat, and I started to get impatient. Go figure. Fatherhood, parenthood, until about 2.5, in terms of losing my patience, like, it didn't happen. It didn't happen. I noticed that I was losing my patience in a way that was like, I was speaking to him in a way that I'd never spoken to him before, which is kind of short, like a little dickish. I was starting to take it like as though he's not 3. And that's what we all do as parents. Eventually you lose perspective and you're like treating them like somebody who's much older. And that's not fair. That's not fair to them at all. So I was being really impatient with him. And then I think I realized it as I was doing it, because it was a new thing. And I just said, I'm sorry. I'm being really impatient with you, aren't I? And then he just went, yeah. And I said, you're right. I don't like the way I was speaking to you. I'm sorry. But when this happened, I realized, like, oh, me apologizing to a 3-year-old as his father, like, I was like, that's new. And that was a beautiful moment.
So that's the gossip guy talking about saying sorry to your kids. Hey, do you remember the first time you apologized to your son?
No, but it was a lot. I mean, like, my God, such a different experience than compared to like how I was raised. I mean, the eras, yeah. I think it's like it's to a point where you can't. It's not even worth going, oh, but it was different. I mean, I just will flatly say, like, it was a different era. You know what I mean? Like, can't even. And maybe other parents were different or whatever, but it just, these were the cards I was dealt with. I had immigrant parents. Father never, I don't think was ever even raised by, he went to, like, essentially, it sounds too fancy to call it boarding school, but he was just sent off, It's, we're talking about the 1940s. British India, you know what I mean? Like, how do you even go, oh, well, my dad, it's like, come on, so different. My mom's schizophrenic, so that throws a monkey wrench in that for sure. So very, very different. Of course, tons of apologizing. I remember certainly when he was like between 1 and 2, we were in the loft, and like I was like screaming, he was crying, and then I was just like, okay, calm down. Like it was, yeah, just the insano times. I was not working, just home and with him, and yeah, just my God, this was the era when you'd just be like, is he gonna have the nap? I can have an hour to open up the computer, apply for a job, check an email, do something. That was a big moment for me, that one moment, that one day in the loft. And then think about just even recently, just 2 Sundays ago, my birthday, where, I had to like apologize the following day on Monday. Just things on that evening got, kind of a little weird. Little combination, I think, of, it's funny, I realize now my son is someone who's also like 13. These guys, they get a little aggressive and stuff like that. And they like to like get up in your face, and to be blunt, you mix that with like any kind of like alcohol or something. It's hard to read the terrain. Are we still playing, or is this gonna get weird? You know what I mean? Or like, not that anyone got hurt, but it was just like not really the best moment for us. So yeah, I remember the last apology. That was week Monday. We can go Monday, and I remember that one, and I'm sure there'll be many more.
It's funny you're talking about like physically like horse playing with your kid. I remember being in my 20s on Nantucket, which sounds again fancy. It was like I was like roughing it. Some other rich kid invited us, and I remember someone was like, "Oh, that guy's a chef," and I was like, "Who is that?" And this guy, this like massive chef, he's with his family, punches his like preteen kid so hard in the arm, and I was like, "Is that normal? Is that like a?" And I was like, I guess that's, how fathers and sons, I don't show love. I don't know. I was like, I don't think I'll ever punch my kid, but I don't know. I don't know. I don't have a preteen. Anyway, it was Todd English, so everyone now knows. Punched
Oh,
his
he's a
son
little
really hard.
intense. He's,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I've definitely eaten at his restaurants, but yeah, it's weird. Like, I just was at this speaking at my kid's school, and 2 of his buddies come up to me, and they're like, "What's up, Mr. Khan?" And they like fist bump me, and it's like, they're like these little men, dude. You know what I mean? They're like, "What's up, bro? Bro?" Like, they're getting in there. And I was telling one of the teachers, I was like, yeah, I'm scared of them. Like, they're these boys, right? Some of them, I'm like, that guy could mow me over, like physically. Like, it's crazy. But obviously emotionally, not fully developed, clearly. But yeah, it's definitely like a very strange time. You're like my kid, like, we're playing volleyball, and I was like, Jesus Christ, he's like all over the place, running, jumping. I'm like, I can't move that way. And I work out several times a week, like I'm in pretty good shape, but not, these guys are about to enter peak athleticism in their lives, like crazy. If they don't become professional athletes, they'll peak by 18. Then they'll go to college, and their physical activity will drop.
I love how you're flex, though. You're like, I should be able to take them. I work out several times per week.
I mean, yeah. Yeah, no. I mean, like, I move my body, for sure. But that's nothing compared to your body. In some ways, he is, like, unbreakable. He is, like, testing himself out, doing things. It's crazy.
I wish that I could have appreciated, it's like youth is wasted on the young, the ability to recover and just, put your body through different things, that you do like a 15-minute, YouTube fitness video, and then I'm feeling it for like 4 days after.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is like, I do these workouts, but I have a very specific, methodical. I mean, it's a warm up, but I have to ramp up and ramp back down. You know what I mean? There's no, yeah, it's it's some crazy stuff. But I don't know. I mean, do you feel like? I mean, your kids. Look. I mean, I feel like I mean, there's always going to be phases that'll be challenges, I guess, with your kid, right? But certainly, like, what he was talking about, like, get in the car seat. Why not? There's that stress level where you can kind of lose it, right? There's that. I'm definitely, this era is more like, like, he's kind of testing limits to a degree. But it's funny, like, I don't know. I'm kind of curious to know when the next. I found he's been able to kind of recognize and contain emotions and, not like basically totally flip out. Like we started to notice some things where it's like, okay, like he's 12 and wow, it's just the teenage years kind of coming out. And then I noticed like, no, he's starting to get it in there. But I just wonder, and everyone's different, but I just wonder, I've heard stories, about some people who have those teens that are like, and like, they're going to be those younger people, teens and stuff who are just like, yeah, I just could not get along with my parents. Like you hear about our friend's daughter they were literally like, she just does not want to be around us. And including the other kid too. But then at some point she turned the corner and that was the end of that. But these like kind of inexplicable, like we're not going to get along years. I wonder about that potentially coming, or not. I don't know. But that's kind of the era I'm in. It's like the frustration's not so much like microcosmic, like, oh my God, just put this shoe on. Please put this shoe on. You've got to put this shoe on. We're late. To like, dude, like you are going to fail this class. You know what I mean? It's more that kind of level too. Although he's doing pretty good in school. I don't know. It's like up and down. It's up and down. One day you're like, oh my God, he's like a genius. And then you're like, wait, you didn't turn in 3 assignments and now you have a 68%. Like, what's going on? Just, I don't know. It's crazy. That's where I'm at. I can't, and then, by the way, all the math he does, I've said this before, I'm probably a broken record, but like, I can't keep up with him, and I sure as heck can't help him with his homework. It's insane. He asked me about prime numbers yesterday. I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is. I mean, I've heard of it.
Divisible by 1 and itself.
Literally, he said that, and it was just like, just went right.
I didn't even Google that. I that's up there in the old hard drive. Couple useful things up there.
When you did the SAT,
yeah.
First of all, when you did the SAT, do they have essay?
No, I was just a verbal math guy. I'm not that young.
I don't. Hey, man, I stopped paying. You think I keep up with the SAT after 1994? No, I'm done with it. Yeah. More importantly,
I was which I'm happy about because I like being able to have been a 1600. That era where they had the 2400. Get out of here. It's at 2400. No. It's at a 1600. All right. You want another test? Go take an SAT 2. All right. Go take an AP.
ACT. You could be the guy who has to take the ACT. So I have to ask, what was higher, verbal or math for you?
Yes.
Math?
No.
Oh.
I was 690 verbal, 660 math.
Oh. Wait, so you were in the 13s.
That's right. 1350.
Solid.
Don't forget it.
That's very solid.
Yeah.
I was supposed to get into the 12s. I pre-tested 12s, but walked out in shame with the 1160.
You always go lower. I remember I got some 14s in the practice tests, but never happens in the big game,
Oh man, you lace up and you think you know what's going on.
Yeah, because who's really, because it's like, they're the valedictorian and stuff. They're getting like perfect score on practice tests, and even they end up with like, I got a 1560. Like it just that real test. Like there's a pressure that happens.
Did you have? I mean, it's funny. I kind of infer this because my dad, as a physician, had, lots of different types of colleagues, but I feel like, he had a few friends who were Jewish or whatever, and I feel like, to a certain degree, certain cultures have academic expectations, perhaps more so than others, right? So, being of the brown crowd, that were all sons of basically doctors. You know what I mean? That's the only one, the only way you can get into the country for a good amount of time. You know, it was like, okay, like you have a culture of like academic excellence, and also that meant, oh, did you hear about blah blah blah? They got this or that. Did you have that? Did you have the comparison scenarios?
Oh, that's interesting. My academics were important, but I was fairly self-motivated. I wasn't like they weren't riding me. But yeah, I mean it's like such a core value that like you should study and do hard, do work hard and try to, get into a good college but like at the same time like my parents were like a little hippie-ish that like we wanted to be happy, but like
Different.
not at the expense of academics. I will tell you one funny story that I think about sometimes, which is that I remember one year, maybe going into like sophomore or junior year, I didn't get placed in honors English and maybe in like history or something, and I remember I those were like the subjects I excelled in, and I was kind of like bummed out, and it was summertime, and my dad was like, we're going down there, we're going down to the guidance counselor, we're going to get you in the honors class. And I was like, no, like, I wasn't placed in it, and I don't know why, but like maybe the teacher had a good reason, maybe I had a bad score on something. And I remember saying like, Dad, like the guidance counselor said he's busy, like he can't help us. Like we have to wait until school starts in September to like address. And my dad's like, we're going down there. I said, I guarantee you, he's sitting there, twiddling his thumbs, eating a donut. All right, we're going down there. We're getting you in the honors class. And lo and behold, we arrive at Pascack Hills High School in August at some point. And Mr. Chericello, we bump into him. He's got a bagel in his mouth. And I was like, all right, you were close. And we go in the office.
You make him sound like a golden retriever. Like
I remember like the visual of the bagel in his mouth and connecting the dots between donut, bagel. Anyway, circular starchy thing. So he gets me in the honors class. And, there's a different kind of pressure on the phone versus when the parent storms the building and is like, we're getting Neil in honors English and honors history, Anyways, cut to a couple years later. I think I'm a senior at this point. A classmate of mine who remains, he'll remain nameless on this podcast. Maybe he's changed his views. I don't want to, throw him under the bus like he's taught English or something. But we're backstage at the school play, and he's working on the crew, and I'm one of the actors in the musical.
Of course, a musical, of course, yes.
Perhaps it was Bye Bye Birdie. I was Conrad Birdie in our senior, when I was a senior. Anyways, long story short, we're talking about, the honors track and GPA. Everyone's talking about getting into college and that whole thing, and everyone's got a lot of anxiety. And this kid, not Jewish, he goes, the problem is all these Jewish kids, all their parents are just, getting them into the honors classes when they're not supposed to be, and, like working the system. And I'm sitting there going, this is very anti-Semitic. Also, in my case, true.
Yeah, but, we don't make a rule out of it.
And I never knew what to do with it, and so here we are.
Wow.
A couple decades later, and I still think about this because I go, stereotypes come from somewhere. This was my experience, and here he is saying kind of a shitty thing. That in my case was true. No. And so when you ask if I've experienced anti-Semitism, which you by the way, you never asked me, Ollie. That's a story I think of.
Yeah, that's wow. I mean, usually it's a slam dunk where it's like, well, the problem is these Jews. Watch that get chopped up and sent out on social media, and I'm gonna be freaking Johnny Hamas. I had two kids who were younger than me by 1 year. One got a 1600 on the SAT, a Bengali kid, and the other one got like 1590 or something like that. But they were the people who'd be like, you see, Neil, 1600. And not only did Neil get a 1600, he also became a doctor. And he became the exact kind of doctor that my dad was. So my dad could be like, Neil, 1600, doctor, and my kind of doctor. I was like,
Is his name really Neil?
yeah, his name's Neil. Neil Day.
Neel?
Neil. Oh, that's right. How about that? Neil Day. Yeah.
Neil. Wait. Shout him out. What's his name?
Neil Day.
Where's he
Dey.
practice?
I think he does like research in Seattle. I haven't seen him in forever, but you know what's kind of funny is I remember in college I like to toke the reefer, and I remember college break being basically going to this like Bangladeshi party, and I didn't see these people in forever, and I see Neil and the other kid who got the 1500, the high 1500. He goes, my middle name's Alexander, so this will explain why they're like, hey, Alex, check this out. So they're like, Alex, check this out. And he's wearing a Sonic the Hemp Dog shirt. Sonic the Hedgehog is now, I mean, and this thing just looks as tacky as you could imagine a 90s marijuana shirt could be. And you know, it's like, ha ha ha, I'm like, oh, I get it. And then he's wearing this shirt and he still went to Yale Medical School. He probably had a full ride, you know? And he went to my high school, and yeah, he was just one of those people that kind of like, you know, it's one thing when you're like academically successful at a high level, but also when you're a bit easygoing and fairly well liked, you're like, wow, you just can't really, you know, sometimes you're like, oh, the guy's got a 1600, he's like a jerk. There's got to be something wrong. You're like, nah, he's fine, man. And I mean, I'm not to judge or whatever, but you know, it's kind of funny how all these years later, you could be like, oh yeah, like I'm a doctor. And then a friend of ours the other day who is a doctor is like, oh yeah, our friends work at Meta in the Bay Area and they make 10 times the money we do. And you're like, go figure. So much for the, you know, not that money is everything, Neil. There's more to life.
Yeah.
Like
Neil
being
Day
in
is
Bye
saving
Bye Birdie.
lives.
Neil Day, he probably is figuring out, you know, how to beat Crohn's disease because he's doing research as a gastroenterologist. Hopefully, though, he's not trying to sell sausage. Hopefully he's, you know, it's literally an alert on my desktop. And a shout out to my first colonoscopy doctor who doesn't eat sausage, but was more than happy to throw money and invest in it. He literally goes, I don't eat this stuff. In like the 1970s medical office. We're literally talking about an old episode, but it's a gold one, guys. It's a golden moment.
We've only got 9 episodes out, but let's do a best of. Let's revisit, you know? Hey,
Doctor number 6, Dr. Sridhar and his sausage scam. This happened. This actually happened. Did I tell you about the secretary at the office? She had a giant big gulp. You know, like, I'm in a place getting my colonoscopy, like, you know, what's wrong with my health? I have, like, you know, hemorrhoids, whatever. You get to the bottom of everything. And then, you know, you're in a doctor's office and you just see a giant big gulp. Like, that's not a good look. You know?
Not great. You have any parting words for our fellow dads?
This has been an interesting episode. But I also feel like it's been a great episode for me and Neil. And Neil's had an epic weekend. I mean, you turned 40 in grand fashion. I can't imagine. I mean, even if you just turned 40 and you were like, then the sitter said, can my boyfriend come over? I'd be like, what's going on? But, you know, a Holocaust survivor who's literally giving you heavy life lessons, you know, that's huge.
We went there. We went there.
Yeah, I know. I mean, great, you know, and your son, luckily he's okay. Learned about new bandage techniques. Yeah, this has been quite an era.
Can I tell you one more thing that I love about the babysitter's boyfriend is he had his laptop, again, PhD in computer science. He had his laptop out and he had one sticker on it, and the sticker said, "But would your thesis defend you?"
Wow. You know, when you said, "Can my boyfriend come over?" I have to tell you, the last thing I ever thought about was that guy. You know what I mean? Like, that is you're like, wow, like, yeah, crazy.
Kind of, yeah.
I imagine this sitter kind of giving me the vibe of, Rocky's girlfriend in Rocky 1. You know what I mean? When she's at the pet shop. You know what I mean? Kind of that.
Can I tell you something?
Yeah.
Never seen Rocky.
It's a dated one. I forced my son to watch
he dies
it.
in the end of the first one, right?
No. What are you talking about?
Spoiler.
No, it's not. No one dies at the end of Rocky.
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
That's what I heard.
No. But I do know this. You know what I heard? It goes by fast, and you need to enjoy it. That, I am quoting. That's what I'm going to sign off for World's Greatest for all the dads out there. And it is true. Always listen to the 95-year-old Holocaust survivor. She has seen it all. And I'm telling
Not
you.
the Holocaust, because she escaped.
Well, she saw it coming. You know, she was a visionary. She goes, I'm out of here. I am not going to Dachau. I mean, that's what I pick. You know, I think that's a cool thing. It's like she's kind of a Tomb Raider vibe. Like, I'm out. You know, catch me if you can. Boom, I'm out. There you go. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, yeah, that's hustle to her.
Have a good week, Ollie.
Sure will. It's been great so far.